Hello! Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Grace. I'm here to yap about whatever I want. So if you want to join that journey, hit the subscribe button down below to be notified when I post new videos. Today, as you see in the title, we're going to be talking about the Justin Baldoni suing the New York Times lawsuit. If you didn't see my first video of me reacting to Blake Lively's, it wasn't really like a lawsuit, the first one. It was basically like a threat that they were going to sue. And then Justin Baldoni filed this lawsuit, I think on New Year's Day. So we're going to read through it. I was going to do a live reaction. It's 87 pages, y'all. I just could not do a live reaction. It would have taken me 2.5 to 3 hours. It took me a while to read through it. I read through it on my iPad, highlighted things that I wanted to talk about. I will link the filing down below if you want to go read it in full. And yeah, let's just get into it because this is going to take a minute. Okay. It's part of like the meeting where you're like, okay, I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see it? Okay, I'm going to make this like really, oh God. Okay, my computer's lagging. Okay. Ma'am. Okay. So this is the lawsuit. And Wayfarer Studios, Justin, Jamie Heath, a bunch of the other people involved are suing the New York Times, and then also a bunch of does. They say at the end that they're unaware of who these people are, so I'm really interested to see more about that. Okay, so they're suing for libel, false light invasion of privacy, promissory fraud, and breach of implied in fact contract. And they're demanding a jury trial. So I think this is really interesting because this can mean a couple of things. One, it can mean that they're so confident in their evidence that they're willing to put this in front of a jury. Two, they're delusional enough to think that they have enough evidence to go in front of a jury. Or they're using this as kind of like puffing our chest so Blake doesn't want to sue or doesn't want to, or New York Times doesn't want to just like settle. Okay, literally at the beginning of all these videos, my nose starts to run. So let's just take care of that. Okay. And yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. What is happening right now? Maybe I have to use my trackpad instead of. Girl, what is going on here? Okay, hold please. I have no idea. What is going on with this? This is bizarre. Okay, maybe because I'm in the like weird mode. Okay, hold on. Okay, this is better. Sorry, I don't know what the fuck was going on with that. Okay, so this is just saying they're suing the Times. Again, I'm not going to read through all of this because it is, again, 87 pages. So I'm just going to talk about the stuff that I highlighted because I think it's the most important. Again, I'll link it below. Go read it for yourself. Okay. So essentially, the New York Times was writing this piece with Blake Lively. They reached out to Wayfarer, and all of these people were asked to provide an on-the-record comment to notify of any inaccuracies, provide a statement, et cetera, et cetera. They promptly denied the accusations as reported by the Times and criticized both Lively and the Times' reliance on, quote, cherry-picked and altered communications stripped of necessary context and deliberately spliced to mislead. Despite its claim to have reviewed these along with other documents, the Times relied almost entirely on Lively's unverified and self-serving narrative, lifting it nearly verbatim while disregarding an abundance of evidence that contradicted their claims and exposed her true motives. Okay, so what's really interesting about this is that these publications don't want to be sued, okay? So they do research. Now, does that mean that the research is always complete? Maybe not. But again, they don't want to be sued. This is not something that they want. So, yeah. Okay. Notably, Lively chose not to file a lawsuit against Baldoni, Wayfair, or any of the plaintiffs, a choice that spared her from the scrutiny of the discovery process, including answering questions under oath and producing her communications. This decision was no accident. First, her administrative complaint is rife with blatant falsehoods and egregious misrepresentations that would have subjected her to the dismissal if not sanctions. Second, sorry, my brain it's 11:30 and somehow I can't read. Second, pursuing formal legal action would have derailed her true objective, an orchestrated campaign to rehabilitate her public image. Okay, so this is something that people were talking about essentially because she didn't file a lawsuit. She just basically put in a complaint, which is essentially a threat to sue. And of course, this was meant to be private, but then it was leaked through the Times article. And yeah, I mean, I will say, like, does this look bad potentially because she doesn't want to go through the discovery process? Yeah, maybe. I don't necessarily think that's always the case. I think people have different motivations for doing different things. Maybe she just wanted to like put this out there to show that he and everyone else on the lawsuit was like a really shitty person and like whatever, but also she could have just done an interview with the New York Times, right? And like shared her experiences and stuff like that. And it wouldn't have to have been a formal legal complaint. Also, for a bit of background, I don't like either of these people. Like, I have no skin in the game. I said in my first video, I really don't like Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds or Colleen Hoover for that matter. Justin Baldoni is very like meh to me. Like, I watched Jane the Virgin. I thought it was a good show. I know he has like a ultra feminist podcast, which is very interesting, given these allegations. So again, I don't really care for either of them. So, you know, whatever, that's just like, so I'm trying to go in unbiased. I guess I am biased, but I'm trying to view it from both sides. That's why I'm kind of like explaining these things a little bit. And then also this part about like rehabilitating her public image is really interesting to me because like she could have done this in other ways. Like, I don't think you need to talk about like harassment. Like, I don't think that needs to be like, that's what's going to absolve her like shitty behavior in past interviews and just like life in general. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. Instead, she filed a request for the right to sue, right? Basically a threat to sue. While such a letter can precede a lawsuit, it is clear that litigation was never her ultimate goal. Her real intention was to weaponize the appearance of legitimacy conferred by a numbered legal document to launch salacious, headline-grabbing allegations and reshape her public persona at the expense of the plaintiffs. Again, I don't really, I guess maybe they're saying if she had just done an interview with the New York Times instead of filing a legal complaint, it wouldn't have been as serious. But I think either way, because Blake Lively is such an A-list celebrity, it would have been viral anyway. So I'm not really aligned with the argument that she had to file this complaint for it to be a big story or be headline grabbing. It would have been headline grabbing no matter what, right? Like, it's just, I don't necessarily agree with the premise of that. Like, she had to file the legal complaint to do that. Okay, in an era where public trust in media has reached a historic low and legacy outlets are increasingly criticized as biased and agenda-driven, the Times has chosen to double down on sensationalism and oversimplified narratives. Rather than striving for accuracy and balance, it has prioritized hollow signaling over substantive reporting, further eroding its credibility and exacerbating the very mistrust it claims to combat. I just thought this was interesting. I think there's this interesting argument going on now with all like the quote fake news and like all of that shit. Like, it just is such an interesting argument to me that they're basically saying because sometimes the media is trustworthy and essentially because especially I feel like Americans have really bad media literacy, that it's on them. Like, it's basically these publications are now just like making fake news and like spreading whatever the fuck because it goes against their client's best interest and like goes against their whole like lives essentially. The plaintiffs orchestrated a retaliatory public relations campaign against Lively for speaking out about harassment on set. If the Times truly reviewed the thousands of private communications it claimed to have obtained, its reporters would have seen incontrovertible evidence that it was Lively, not the plaintiffs, who engaged in a calculated smear campaign. The complete communications demonstrate beyond question that plaintiffs had no intention of, quote, destroying or, quote, burying Lively through aggressive tactics. On the contrary, Baldoni consistently expressed his desire to avoid harming Lively and protect the film, but also recognized a legitimate need for PR protection in light of Lively's false and damaging claims. Okay, so they're basically saying, it wasn't us, it was you. But I'm not going to spoil anything if you haven't read it. I just think this whole thing of like destroying and burying isn't really fully addressed in my opinion. So yeah. Okay, so then we have some texts. These were also included in the last lawsuit, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. I don't think like half of these, I don't think really prove anything. So I basically put a star on the ones that I want to talk about. Again, go read this all for yourself. Also, sorry for my like terrible handwriting. I cannot figure out how to write well on my iPad. So this is basically that like Lively's really impatient ends with us that drama tension was so obvious. So glad Blake was praised. Let her get a win. It would be nice to have Sony executive praise Justin. This sounds like super sarcastic to me. It doesn't seem like a real statement. Again, I don't know this man. Sorry, Jamie Heath. I mean, I don't like literally do not know anything about this man except for he's on that podcast with Justin Baldoni and their business partners. But that sounds like sarcastic to me, especially because of the article that they shared. Okay, moving along. This fucking kills me. Okay, so they're saying that these three texts were included in the text chain, but this wasn't included. And it's Melissa Nathan saying, I'm headed to the airport. We're driving through the jungle. There's going to be no reception. I'm sorry, you bring offline for 45 minutes was not included in the scope. And I'm like, because it's not relevant to anything. Because it literally has no relevancy to this fucking lawsuit filing. That she's going to be like have no reception literally has nothing to do with this lawsuit. Okay, the Times, however, was aware that these text messages were unscrupulously altered and selectively edited, enabling both Lively and her team and the Times to propagate a false, quote, smear campaign narrative designed to destroy plaintiffs. This is very common in lawsuits, them basically hiding context. But again, like these filings are so long, can they provide all of these things, you know? So anyway. Okay, so then this one, I couldn't remember from the original lawsuit. Isn't she the one who's related to the Daily Mail reporter? She's like, Dan, this is unfair because it's also not me. Everything now looks like it's me, maybe not to you. No, it totally does look like his side. So to me, this sounds more like it's also not me because she's related to the reporter or like connected somehow. I don't think that disproves anything necessarily. Maybe they didn't run that one story. This is all excluded, but I don't think this was because I feel like we saw this. But okay, whatever. Okay, yeah, this upside down smiley emoji is commonly used to convey irony, sarcasm, joking, or a sense of goofiness or silliness. This made me LOL. So one thing that I will note here, I think I noted this in my original video, is that if you look, these are two different types of ways to show text messages in lawsuits. Yeah, I definitely did talk about this. So these look like they're pulled maybe potentially from, I don't know exactly how they're extracted, but these are just like screenshots from a text chain, right? Or text thread. These are like actually pulled from an iPhone or something like that. And I don't know if emojis just aren't extracted. I just don't know. I just don't think this is fucking relevant. Again, this is the same thing. Going to the airport, not gonna have service. Again, why is this even relevant? Okay, Lively deliberately excluded not only the preceding screenshot of the text exchange disproving Nathan's involvement in the story, but also the upside down smiley emoji, which fundamentally alters the sarcastic tone of Abel's message and misleads the reader into interpreting her response as serious. Again, like I said, these screenshots might not include the emojis. This unequivocally shows that Abel and Nathan were engaging in a sarcastic and joking manner, as evidenced by the use of the ha-ha tap-back reaction. When read in full, the exchange reveals Nathan and Abel engaging in facetious juvenile banter, not conspiring against Lively. Okay, I mean, like, everything can be interpreted differently in texts. That's why written communication is sometimes tough. Okay, any negative press about Lively was unequivocally a consequence. I said that with such like a New York accent. A consequence of her own actions. Even the Times itself acknowledged Lively's public missteps in an August 17th, 2024 article titled, "It Ends With Us, the Press Tour Drama Explained." The reporter observed Lively's promotion of this movie has included a push for her new hair care line, discussion of the clothes in the movie, and response to questions about abuse, which have been criticized as shallow and tone deaf. Baldoni, by contrast, has emphasized the importance of raising awareness of DV and providing resources for those in similar situations. Again, I 100% agree that the way that this movie was marketed was really bad. I think, again, like the grab your friends and wear your florals is like so foul to do for a movie about DV. And like I said in my last video, people showed up to the movie not knowing it was about DV. That's not okay, especially for people who have been through situations like that and can be triggered. And, like there's just like a lot of stuff, right? Like this can cause people who have PTSD to like spiral, right? Like this is not, it was a really shitty way to market this movie. But from Blake's statement, this was the agreed upon marketing campaign. And essentially what they alleged is that Baldoni went against the marketing plan to prove like why the rest of the cast and crew had like unfollowed him and didn't want to interact with him and things like that. Okay, so here's more text. Yeah, so this is basically like we interviewed her too, whatever. How was the stunt? Like, again, this seems more sus. Where's the additional context here? I don't know what this means, but like the winky face and like with the stunt, like what does that mean? I don't actually care, but I just thought that was interesting. Lively's marketing efforts, which included encouraging, again, grab your friends and wear your florals while promoting her hair care and alcohol brands, were widely criticized as insensitive. I think this is like kind of whatever that they did the WHO 55% of DV incidents involve alcohol. Again, I don't think Blake did a good job of marketing this movie. Again, her hair care line, the alcohol brands, like they had a party where they used her alcohol and named the drinks after the characters. Like, again, that's like really shitty. And like, I don't agree with that. But it's super common that these big celebrities try to align their projects on a similar timeline so they get the most out of the engagement for things like movies and their hair care line and whatever. So there's that. Yeah, this is all just like we saw this. The backlash against Lively was the inevitable fallout of her own tone-deaf messaging and self-promotional tactics, amplified by her inability to read the room in addressing such a serious subject. Again, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, there's basically saying like it's all organic. She was the one who blah, blah, blah. Yeah, basically saying thinks we placed this one as well. Like, I think there's not a lot of to me, it doesn't like really negate what Blake is saying. Okay, so for this one, this is Blake's PR person. And she's basically saying the whole cast doesn't like her, blah, 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 or doesn't like him. And then this is James, I guess, I don't know if he's a reporter or whoever the fuck, talking to Melissa Nathan. Now she's saying that Blake was essayed. Why wouldn't she have said anything before? I don't remember anything about an essay allegation. Okay, there's a big difference. Both are wrong. There's a difference between essay and harassment. Two very different things. So I'm like, I don't know if maybe he misspoke or what, but this was like very interesting to me. And they also don't show a screenshot of anyone saying it was essay. So again, like that doesn't really like do much for me. Okay, skimming past this. Sorry if I'm making you a little bit dizzy. Just trying to like, again, we saw a lot of this stuff and I feel like some of it is just like not super relevant. Also like, can we get some better fucking screenshots in here? They're so goddamn blurry. Okay, so this was misinterpreted in my opinion because this is, I think, James again. Yeah. She told me the same thing and that she told you which is, she said, oh God, these people like learn how to type. Y'all are reporters and like PR people, like come on. Blake's backlash is organic. It's not she did nothing but help get a movie tons of money. Justin makes tons. I think these people again are so bad at communicating. She hit send before she typed this. And she was kind of promoting it as if it was Barbie. Like, I think that was misinterpreted personally. Okay. So this is basically them talking about the HR complaints, saying that we heard there were multiple complaints. And then this is the PR team for Justin saying no other documented HR complaints. Again, no formal complaints does not mean that there were no complaints to HR, especially on a movie set when you're complaining about the producer and the people who own the production company. Are they going to investigate themselves? Are they going to put themselves in that position? Probably not. And sometimes there's not a formal way to submit HR requests, which is really shitty. Like there should 100% be someone who is there to be able to intake those requests. Excuse me. And then they were saying there was not an intervention on set or with members of the crew. This would be false to allude to. Blake and Ryan had Justin and his team over for a meeting where Blake expressed all the things she was upset about. This was not Justin versus the team behind the film. It was his team versus Blake and Ryan. More of a contentious meeting. The way it reads now reads as if it were a proper intervention with cast and crew. Not true. But like it like kind of is. So I'm like confused by that because they're like, it wasn't with the cast and crew, but it was Justin and the team behind the film versus Blake. It's like, so yes, maybe it wasn't everyone on the cast and crew, but there were important people there. I think Jamie Heath was there. I think other producers were there. Like, this is just kind of interesting to me. Again, sorry if I'm making you dizzy. Okay, so Stephanie Jones was once the Wayfarer trusted PR person, but now not only had intimate access to the communication strategy and crisis management surrounding the film, but also played a pivotal role in leaking private communications cited in the New York Times article. Her betrayal driven by a quid pro quo arrangement with Lively appears aimed at shielding herself while aligning with Lively to curry favor and secure future opportunities. I think she now has her own company, like her own PR company or whatever. And this is basically her saying, this person has been nice and fixed things in the past. Again, this doesn't prove anything to me. So whatever. The complaint sensationally alleges that Mr. Heath had shown Lively a video of his unclothed wife. Sorry, my voice is going. With my gosh, with Lively's. Hold on, guys. Okay. With her complaint even labeling the footage as intimate video. This claim is patently absurd. The video in question was a non-intimate video recording of Heath's wife and baby during home birth, a deeply personal one with no intimate overtone. To distort this benign event into an act of inappropriate misconduct is outrageous and emblematic of the lengths to which Lively and her collaborators are willing to go to defame the plaintiffs. Okay, so this goes back to Blake saying that in the scene where she's giving birth in the movie, they want her to be unclothed and whatever, because like Justin Baldoni's wife like ripped her clothes off to give birth. Again, just because one woman does something doesn't mean all women do something. But in my opinion, okay, I still wouldn't want to see someone else's wife giving birth. To like prove a point is super weird. Also, she said it was she said she thought it was an intimate video because it was a woman with her legs spread open. And then she said, and then I realized, or he said, or whatever it was, that it was his wife giving birth. Okay, so it's not like she said, and he showed me, and then like she included the context. It wasn't like she like fully said, and he showed me an intimate video, and that was it. Like she said, and then he told me that it was his wife giving birth, and it's still inappropriate. I wouldn't want someone, like if I was, pregnant and talking to a coworker and saying, whatever, and they're like, oh, and then show me a video of them giving birth with absolutely no asking if it's okay, nothing, is like gross. It's just inappropriate in the workplace, okay? Even if it has to do with like what you're talking about or like the scene in the movie, it's still inappropriate to be like, oh, and here, let me just like shove this video in your face. Like, it's just weird. And then they have a still of the video, which I'll scroll past quickly. You can go and look at that if you want. Okay. Then they go into talk about both men repeatedly entered her makeup trailer uninvited while she was undressed, including when she was breastfeeding. What Lively and the article failed to mention is that Lively invited, in italics, Baldoni into her trailer while pumping to work on their lines. Okay, so this is basically her saying, I'm pumping in my trailer if you want to work out our lines. Like I said here, just because she offered it one time does not mean it's okay to do any other time. Not sure why that's not like common knowledge. Okay. The allegation that Baldoni inappropriately described Lively's character attire as sexy is exaggerated and misleading. The text exchange between Baldoni and Lively show that Lively has insisted that her character's clothing be much sexier. Okay, this is something also that fucking pissed me off. Basically, she's saying they're talking about the outfits. We'll show you both ways, but beanie is much sexier. Okay, she's talking about a beanie. Okay, a hat? A hat. Okay. Just keep that in mind. She's not talking about a more low-cut dress or a shorter dress or lingerie. Like, she's literally talking about a hat. Okay. Oh, I guess they don't. Do they talk about it later? They must, because I think they talk about it later. So we'll get back to that. I'll get angry about that later. Lively refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator to plan out the film's intimate scenes as part of the creative discussions. Baldoni and Lively sought to personalize and develop their characters, and in doing so, engaged in conversation about their individual experiences. So he's basically saying Blake also engaged in these conversations when they were happening. Okay, and this is interesting too. He's saying, I just hired the intimacy coordinator who I love. We'll set you up to meet FaceTime with her next week for intro. And she said, I feel good. I can meet her when we start. She's not saying, I don't want to communicate with her. I don't want to work with her. I don't want to meet with her. I don't want to talk to her. She's saying, when we start the movie, I'll meet her. I don't need to meet with her ahead of time. In my opinion, this is saying that she's trusting Justin and saying, I trust that you made a good decision. I'll meet her when we start the film. That's my interpretation. After the execution of the protections for return to production, which is that like 30-item bulleted list that Blake wanted implemented In November 2023, Lively herself acknowledges the film was completed, marketed, and released safely and successfully. Again, maybe because she made this 30-point list and they abided by it, because she called them out and they didn't continue this behavior. Lively concedes that neither Baldoni nor Heath engaged in any harassing behavior following the agreement in November 2023. Furthermore, she admits that her stated concerns were sufficiently addressed at that time. This admission, this is so stupid. This admission directly undermines her allegations of retaliation and strips her claims of credibility. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't, because after you call someone out, they're going to stop, potentially, right? They might not. But if she was going to take this to the media, they would want to retaliate, potentially. I'm not saying that they did. I don't know. This is all alleged. But I don't think this undermines her credibility in any way. I think this is kind of like a bullshit claim. The fact is that Lively embarked on a hostile takeover of the production, strong-arming Sony into blessing her with ultimate control. She waged war on Baldoni, weaponizing innocuous interactions from May and June 2023, long before there was any tension between them, to vilify and discredit him. At the time, Baldoni and Lively had a solid working relationship, and Lively expressed no unease around him. This, like, according to who? Right? Like, according to Justin, there wasn't any tension between them, or they had a solid working relationship. That can be one-sided. That can be one-sided. I might have a problem with you. You might not have a problem with me. I feel the tension. You don't. That doesn't mean that the behavior that the other person is exhibiting is not bad or uncalled for or inappropriate, right? Okay. Moving on. This is Justin talking to the editors. Just curious if you guys have peeked at her cut and if anything has changed. I have just been told that we are not permitted to look. I agree. I think this is definitely weird. Again, I'm not in the movie industry. I don't know exactly what is normal, but from what they've written in his lawsuit, this is not normal. So I do think this is weird. Okay. To suggest that the time does that plaintiffs engaged in, I love this, dark arts to destroy Lively's reputation is to ignore that Lively has a longstanding reputational challenges and that plaintiffs' public relations efforts were rudimentary, above board, and entirely defensive. Sorry, I don't know why I'm burping. The Times willingly omits any meaningful discussion of the true source of tension between Lively and plaintiffs, which was Lively's brazen and calculated effort to expropriate the film. Okay, again, I feel like there's this issue where people can't understand that two things can be true at once. She can be being a total bully in the production of the film, taking things over, and she can also be getting harassed by the producers and the owners of the production company. Those two things can be true at once. It doesn't mean that she deserves it because she's being like a bitch and she's like taking control where she shouldn't be. So I think this is like kind of ridiculous. And maybe that is what caused tension. But again, that should not lead to her being harassed. So, and then I started this one. We had nothing to do with this. This is crazy. She doesn't have a good reputation. All of this is organic stuff from real people making TikToks, not bots. If it was just comments, I'd be like, oops, but it's not, LOL. I think, I don't know. I just think like some of this is a little, I don't know. So this is basically Justin talking to the editors, suck it up, I'll let her in. We made a beautiful baby together. Also, I hate when people talk about projects like we made a baby. Ugh. I just think it's like really gross. Like, can we just make any other, like when people are like, this business is my baby. It's like, no, just don't do that. Very proud of us. The last I heard was that she was putting back a fair amount of our version, just not sure what that entailed, whatever. Okay. Again, I thought this was weird. She kicked me out officially from the film now. She's finishing it all. I can't be involved. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, again, I do think this is weird, right? Like this doesn't seem normal. Notably absent from the Times' narrative is Lively's insistence on obtaining editing privileges and demanding her own version of the film. She leveraged her promotional commitments to pressure for the release of her cut, basically saying, like, I won't promote the film if you don't release my cut. Again, I think that's inappropriate and wrong. So, nothing I can argue with there. This is basically them just talking about more editing stuff. Lively's demand for an unearned producer credit and coveted PGA mark, a demand that Wayfair and Baldoni were forced to concede with under duress. They basically sent this letter to the PGA, I guess, basically so that she could get this mark. The article fails to address the fact that Baldoni was systematically sidelined from the marketing of his own film. He insisted on marketing the film with a focus on DV and its survivors, a message that was integral to the film's purpose. Blake drastically limited his input and deliberately steered the promotional campaign away from its societal message, further undermining his role. Lively initially refused to permit his attendance at the film's premiere. Only after significant pressure did she reluctantly agree to allow Baldoni and the Wayfair team to attend, but under humiliating conditions. They were segregated from the main cast, barred from the exclusive after party, and forced to organize their own event at additional cost. I think this is super weird. I think it's really shitty on her part to do that. It's technically his movie, right? Like, he's spent the past 5 years on this and he's financing it, and his production company is like really obviously the owner of the film. So again, I think this is weird. Doesn't mean she deserved to be harassed. All right, so this is, I think, also his selfie from the hospital. Yeah, he did have to, he had some infection in his spine. Okay, keep scrolling. Lively's cynical, abusive, inappropriate harassment allegations to assert unilateral control over every aspect of the production was both strategic and manipulative. This lawsuit seeks to hold the Times accountable for its role in this defamation campaign, but plaintiffs are not done. There are other bad actors involved, and make no mistake, this will not be the last lawsuit. That is a threat. Okay? That's a threat, and I'm very interested to see what happens next. With that, this is basically just talking about where each of these people are located and the jurisdiction of the trial. Okay, so Lively uses unsubstantiated claims to bully Wayfair and Baldoni in an effort to take over the film. Through his literary agent, he contacted the author, Colleen Hoover, on which the film was based. I did see someone comment on TikTok where it was like the first mistake they made was turning Colleen Hoover's book into a movie, and I could not agree more. They secured the option for the book rights. They partnered with Sony to co-finance and distribute the film. There was a requirement that 1% of the film's proceeds go to survivors of DV, which I actually think is great. Lively was granted an executive producer credit, a title often associated with talent of her stature. They did not request that she contribute to the film in any capacity beyond her performance and this credit. So they're basically saying, we didn't ask her to do the editing or be part of the wardrobe or like whatever. Speaking of wardrobe, she takes over the wardrobe. During pre-production, Lively began to assert control over aspects of the film beyond her role as an actor and outside the scope of her contractual entitlements. She overstepped these boundaries, sidelining the production's costume designer, a seasoned professional with a longstanding working relationship with Lively. This I find interesting because if she has a longstanding relationship with Lively, why are they not more like intertwined and aligned? I don't know. Lively also several times refused to participate in wardrobe fittings at the production office a mere 15 minutes away from her Tribeca residence. Instead, she insisted the costume department pack up the wardrobe department and deliver all her wardrobe items to her. Again, this is just like shitty behavior, whatever. In an effort to maintain harmony at the start of their working relationship and to avoid further delays caused by wardrobe conflicts, Baldoni and the studio reluctantly allowed Lively full control over her wardrobe. This concession quickly proved regrettable. Paparazzi captured and published photos of Lively in character wearing her self-selected wardrobe. These images were described as unflattering and sparked a backlash from the film's distributor, Sony. This I'm really interested in because, like, Sony was like, girl, you look ugly in these outfits. Like, I'm very interested in that. Baldoni approached Lively in her trailer to discuss the necessary wardrobe adjustments, although Baldoni did briefly tear up. This is the whole thing about him going into her trailer and like crying for hours or whatever. Although he did briefly tear up during the conversation, it was in response to what he believed was a genuine compliment from Lively, praising his work as a director and actor. In hindsight, he recognized this as a manipulation tactic, likely intended to persuade him to continue allowing her unchecked control over wardrobe decisions. Again, if this happened, really shitty behavior on her part. Like, I can't disagree with that. Okay, then she begins to rewrite the script. During the red carpet interview at the New York City celebrity premiere of the film, she stated, "The iconic rooftop scene my husband actually wrote, nobody knows that, but you know." This revelation came as a surprise to the film's credited screenwriter, who when later interviewed graciously responded, "So if I'm being told that Ryan wrote that, then great, how wonderful." And also said, there were a few little flourishes that I did not write, and if those flourishes came from Ryan, I think that's wonderful. This was also the first time plaintiffs learned that Reynolds, who had no formal role in the film's production, made unauthorized changes to the script in secret. Again, I don't know the rules of filmmaking, but this does seem like pretty shady. I'm not surprised. I think the two of them together think they are like hottest shit of the planet. So whatever. They claim that she would begin altering the script daily. Again, they talk a lot about too with the wardrobe stuff, that it was costing them money and time and delays in the film and all that stuff. Each shooting day was already, basically what I was just gonna say. Each shooting day was already intricately planned, and her constant changes introduced significant stress on the production crew and financial strain. However, just weeks prior, Lively's husband, Ryan Reynolds, had aggressively berated Baldoni during a meeting at their penthouse in New York, accusing him of, quote, fat shaming Lively. And in an effort to avoid further confrontation with Lively and Reynolds and rebuild rapport with his co-star, he continued to bend to her will. Basically, this is really interesting too, of like, they basically brought him over to berate him and humiliate him. And he was prompted by Baldoni's reasonable inquiry into crucial information needed to ensure safety and injury on set. The confrontation that followed was so aggressive that Baldoni felt compelled to offer repeated apologies, despite his question being entirely reasonable and made in good faith. Again, this goes back to him going to Blake Lively's trainer, asking how much she weighed because he has back problems. As we saw, he had like a spinal infection. So he didn't have to potentially injure himself. Whatever I said in the last video, it's weird that he went in a roundabout way instead of just addressing her personally and saying like, hey, I have these issues. Do you feel comfortable disclosing your weight, or can we, like whatever, like just go to her. Why are you, it's like weird to go to her trainer and ask that. Following this incident, Lively refused to perform the lift scene, even though it had already been rehearsed with a stunt double. So this goes back to the fact that she said it wasn't in the script already. So I don't know, just conflicting information there. In fact, she threatened to quit the production altogether despite her contractual obligations. She gave Justin an ultimatum to either cast someone else or work with her in the way that she works. It was her way or the highway. Again, she's just like exhibiting like shitty behavior, which this doesn't, I get where they're coming from the argument of like she's making this up instead of it just being like her being a crappy person to work with, I guess, but I don't know. Beyond the script revisions, Lively extended her influence over the film to other areas, frequently challenging decisions and asserting control. Her and her collaborators consistently scrutinized interactions with Baldoni and employed tactics that fall squarely within the definition of gaslighting. This behavior pressured Sony, Baldoni, and Wayfarer into ceding control to Lively at every turn, resulting in her domination of nearly every aspect of the film's production. Okay. Lively sets the stage. This is about the protection letter. So Wayfarer received an unsettling and unexpected email from Lively through her counsel containing a 17-point list of non-negotiable conditions that must be met before she would return to work. She demanded that an intimacy coordinator be present at all times when Lively was on set. Contrary to Lively's assertion, it was she who refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator to plan out scenes. Again, this has nothing, just because she didn't need to meet her before the film started, is what she was saying. She didn't refuse to work with this intimacy coordinator while on set. It was just in the planning of the scenes. Again, I don't know enough about movies, but do both parties need to be there? Probably. But again, maybe she trusted Justin enough in the beginning that she was like, I trust that he'll work with the intimacy coordinator, get things planned, and we can talk about it after. I don't know. This is well documented in handwritten notes Baldoni took during meetings with the intimacy coordinator. Okay. I don't think there's anything necessarily. I forgot that they included more about this. His handwritten, dated notes from his meetings with the intimacy coordinator, which again, Lively declined attending, were read to Lively at her penthouse, where she insisted she and Baldoni meet to write the intimate scenes together. In response to a proposal for the intimacy coordinator that Ryle not climax after he satisfied Lively remarked, quote, I'd be mortified if that happened to me, to which Baldoni, following Lively's lead in what seemed like an attempt to connect and develop their characters, remarked that, quote, those have been some of the most beautiful moments with my wife and I don't think her saying that if this scenario happened to her, I'd be mortified necessarily. I don't know. I just think it just gets complicated because, again, like it's talking about like developing and connecting to their characters. Like, again, I'm not an actor. I don't know exactly what this process is like, but it does feel like it can get uncomfortable, right? Like, unless you fully trust the person, unless you have a good relationship with them, like, I'm sure it can be uncomfortable when they're talking about their personal, intimate lives. Lively claims that Justin made her feel, quote, unsafe when he used the word, quote, sexy while discussing a wardrobe adjustment, when in fact, Lively herself had previously indicated both verbally and in text message shown below that she wanted her character's wardrobe to be, quote, sexier. Again, they only have that one text talking about the beanie, which is so stupid to me. So I can't really fully comment to say like if there was other conversations, explaining that the look would be sexier without it, talking about a coat. He apologized despite having made a professional suggestion as a director. Notably, in a separate text exchange, she used the word sexy to describe one of her character's outfits while advocating for her own wardrobe choice, an inconsistency that undermines the basis of her complaint. It doesn't. It really doesn't. There's a difference between, saying a beanie would make the look sexier and like, I think you should wear lingerie in the scene. I'm not saying that's what was happening, but like, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's weird. And this is the text that we saw earlier. She Lively established what language is acceptable. This really pisses me off. She established what language is acceptable to her and what is not at the very outset of the relationship, just 2 days into filming. To use this language herself, then in turn, make a note of each instance when her director used the same language, also to describe her wardrobe and character, is a double standard. Just because I say that I want to wear a beanie because it looks sexy doesn't give Justin Baldoni or anyone else the right to be like, you would look sexier if, like, you know what I mean? It's just like fucking weird. Just because like I describe myself in some way doesn't mean I want some other person to like objectify me in that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think this is a weird argument. To generate a list of demands that insinuate he and his business partners acted inappropriately and refused to work unless they agree not to do it again is calculating and even extortionistic. But to then use Wayfarer, Baldoni, and Heath's agreement to not do something they already did not do, were not doing, and had no intention of doing, as the basis to film a non-public CRD complaint against them and release it to the public herself in order to ruin their reputation is defamation, and the Times was directly complicit in this. Yeah, I think it's just like a silly argument. Lively also established very early that it was acceptable to be present while Lively was breastfeeding. Again, just because she texted you saying one time that it was okay doesn't mean that it's okay every time. Both Heath and Baldoni have children, are comfortable around breastfeeding mothers, and Lively seemed equally comfortable. Again, just because they have kids and are comfortable around breastfeeding mothers doesn't mean that breastfeeding mothers are comfortable around them. And just because she seemed equally comfortable does not mean that she actually was. Okay, as revealed in a text message exchange between Baldoni and Lively less than 2 weeks into filming, she invited him to rehearse. We saw this. Lively now also alleges in the CRT complaint that Baldoni and or Heath would enter her makeup trailer on their own volition while she was breastfeeding. Notably, breastfeeding was an activity she often conducted openly in the presence of both of them, including during production meetings. Again, it doesn't mean that every time she's doing it, it's okay. Like, I think it's silly. Again, this is the same text. Lively suggests Heath walked in her trailer unannounced while, quote, in a state of undress and topless, which is false. Heath was invited into her trailer along with a female producer, Baldoni, and a Sony rep for a meeting requested by Lively. Mr. Heath arrived first to see if Lively was ready for the meeting, and after knocking and being invited in, saw that Lively was breastfeeding. She was not topless. She was having makeup removed from her collarbone while fully covered. Okay. Again, just conflicting stories. Roughly 2 weeks later, Lively announced that she thought she had seen Heath make eye contact with her. Heath immediately apologized and said he hadn't even realized he looked her way, in response to which Lively remarked, "I know you weren't trying to cop a look." This is just weird to me. I just highlighted because I thought it was a little weird. Okay. They were blindsided by Lively and Reynolds, who presented a list of grievances that were both unanticipated and troubling. Reynolds launched into a tirade berating Justin in what he later described as a traumatic encounter, stating he had never been spoken to like that in his life. Again, I can't say I'm surprised by this. I think, again, Ryan Reynolds seems like just annoying to me. But again, if, I'm saying if because it's all alleged, if this was happening to Blake, I would hope her husband would be berating him, right? Like you would want your partner or significant other, or whoever, to be doing that too. Lively inaccurately claims that a list of 30 items was agreed upon during this meeting. This assertion is categorically false. A 30-point list is strategically positioned to appear as if it were a standalone written document. However, no such document was ever presented to Baldoni, the Wayfair team, or to their knowledge, anyone else. Again, this would probably be pretty easily contradicted if it's false. So, yeah. Filming resumed without further grievances or references to prior disputes from Lively, a fact that Lively concedes in her complaint. Again, after you call someone out and they stop behaving that way, yeah, it would probably be fine. The Directors Guild of America mandates a 10-week protected period during which this goes back to like her wanting to take editing over. There's a 10-week mandated protected period during which the director of a feature film is entitled to privately edit the film and assemble their director's cut, providing the director with uninterrupted time to creatively shape the final product. She requested to join Baldoni in the editing bay as a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in the entertainment industry and having grown up in a family deeply involved in the field. She was fully aware of the implications of her request. The aftermath of the serious false allegations she had leveled against the production, Baldoni, Wayfair, and Sony reluctantly agreed to grant her access to the editing bay for 2 days. Notably, despite her allegations that Baldoni made her, quote, uncomfortable, Lively sought to spend prolonged, close time with him in the confined and collaborative space of the editing bay. Okay, like, this is just, again, if this is towards the end of the film, when they had, quote, they had stopped acting like this after she called them out, she might have been fine with it. What began as a 2-day collaboration extended into 10 days, during which Lively sought to work alone in the editing bay without Justin. Lively expressed dissatisfaction with mere collaboration, asserting that she too deserved the opportunity to see her creative vision realized. Lively fired the film's editors and hired someone specifically used by Reynolds. She also fired the film's award-winning composer, replacing him with the composer from Reynolds' most recent project. Against repeated objections, Lively created her own cut of the film, and Sony later informed Wayfair that Lively would not promote the film unless her demands were met. Again, not in the film industry. This seems weird as fuck. Like, I do think this is weird. Faced with the possibility of Lively refusing to promote the film or approve any related marketing material, Wayfair and Baldoni felt compelled to acquiesce. The studio reluctantly agreed to do an official audience test of both versions, Lively's cut and Baldoni's director cut. The decision was made with the understanding that Lively had agreed with Sony that if Baldoni's director cut tested higher, she would drop the matter and fully cooperate, and Baldoni could proceed finishing the film without Lively's editorial inferences. I thought this was super interesting. Unsurprisingly, despite Baldoni's cut scoring significantly higher with audiences in film's target demographic, she reneged on her promise. She insisted that her cut be the version released to the public, even going so far as to claim that the author of the book would also refuse to promote the film if Lively's version was not chosen. Under immense pressure, Sony and Wayfair once again conceded. I thought this was super interesting. I would be interested to hear Lively's camp's take on this. If it's true, again, just like bad behavior from her. This is the producer credit thing. I don't really think this is, I think, again, this is just bad behavior. Basically, she wanted producer credit, but also this PGA mark, which is to identify producers who have performed the majority of the producing functions on a motion picture. They basically, I thought this was interesting too. Where is it? Wait, okay. She demanded that they send letters to the PGA in support of the mark. Sony and other parties ultimately acquiesced and sent letters of support. She later instructed Sony to tell Wayfair and Baldoni that any goodwill left between us is done. Heath provided a copy, this is what I thought was interesting, copy of the letter to the Wayfair's lawyers, accompanied by a statement indicating that they signed the letter under duress. I don't know if they include that. I would be interested to see that. Lively's successful bullying tactics will result in Baldoni's exile from his own film. Consistent with her pattern of vindictiveness as the premiere of the film approached, Lively instructed Sony that she and the cast would not participate in any marketing or promotion of the film alongside Baldoni. Again, we all saw this playing out in real time. He later received word that during the premiere of his movie Deadpool and Wolverine, Reynolds approached Baldoni's agent at William Morris Endeavor and demanded that he drop Baldoni. I thought this was interesting too. Lively systematically excluded Baldoni from all marketing and promotional efforts with her in the cast from the film. Also, which we saw, they all unfollowed him, etc., etc. Baldoni was informed that Lively demanded he not attend the film's premiere on August 9th, 2024. She further threatened that if Baldoni attended the premiere, she and the majority of the cast would boycott. Again, this just seems like shitty behavior on her part. The fact that Sony advised Wayfair to concede underscores Lively and Reynolds' immense power and influence, which I agree. But again, on the other side, if these allegations are true and she was being harassed, I would understand why she wouldn't want them there. What did they refuse to do here? Oh, this is basically like to have them refuse to go to the premiere. Finally, through Sony, Wayfair persuaded Lively to, quote, permit Baldoni and the Wayfair team, along with their friends and family, to attend through only demeaning and humiliating conditions. They were in a separate theater. They were required to arrive at different times than the rest of the cast, instructed to leave the venue immediately after Lively arrived. He was excluded from the official celebrity after party, despite it being an event paid for by his production company. Okay, this is just talking about like some charity effort he does. Baldoni forced to hire crisis PR to combat Lively's negative press push. Wayfair and Baldoni retained Nathan and the tag team as a protective measure ahead of the film's premiere. Their engagement focused exclusively on defensive strategy and fact verification. They prepared for worst-case scenarios based on their prior behavior, the Lively and Reynolds' prior behavior. No aggressive tactics like astroturfing were ever employed. Lively's publicist Sloan launched a negative press push against Baldoni. Tag was made aware of Sloan planting an unfavorable, false, and defamatory story about Baldoni's faith in page 6. Sloan proceeded to feed false stories to the Daily Mail and New York Post containing allegations that Baldoni was an predator. Sloan would also plant a false story alleging that there were multiple HR complaints during the production. Again, there's no real evidence to me in these text messages or otherwise that this is true. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's not much to that. Unless I'm reading something wrong. And if you feel differently, let me know in a comment. Okay, again, sorry if I'm making you dizzy. While Baldoni sought to focus on the film's central premise, lively incensed audiences with seemingly flippant and tone-deaf remarks, encouraging viewers to grab your friends and wear your florals. Embarrassed by this self-induced backlash, Lively now seeks to vilify Baldoni in a dubious attempt to resuscitate her public image. Okay. I don't know about that, but okay. We saw some of this stuff. Okay, so they included all of these, but excluded Jenna Bell saying the truth is your defense. You have done nothing wrong, and there's over a year worth of facts and paper trails and people who can go on background as your defense. This document is an overview, and I think the situation evolved. And as it has become realized the great lengths she has gone to in order to cut you out of not just the film, but promo, the premiere, etc., we need to prepare as if she will also go through any great lengths with press. It's a good thing if we all prepare for the worst outcome, because then if and when it's not as bad, we are overprepared. Okay, so this was interesting to me. This is the whole, like, we can destroy her. This didn't really clear things up. They're saying these were some, like, excluded things. We can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We'll do this. Of course not. But I told him that's the point of talking through. That's excluded. That I don't think makes it look any better. It's basically saying we don't want to put this in writing. He has to look at this information document and be armed, blah, blah, blah. The work is not the document. The work is the fucking crisis, LOL. If it's any consolation, he's like this with everything. Overthink, stresses, high anxiety. He just needs to be educated on how this process works. We can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. I'll be very tough. Again, this to me doesn't make the situation any better. Like, I don't think this, because they excluded these, it doesn't make it any better, in my opinion. They included this text, and also, as you know, this twisting and turning because we don't know their moves. But don't worry, I get it. I may just drink half a tank of Pepto-Bismol, which I thought was actually pretty funny. And I'll be ready for the call. I don't think this really, like, proves anything. Oh gosh, I don't remember some of these. I don't remember what I started these for. Okay, I'm just gonna skip past this because we're already okay, so this is interesting. This is all excluded. Just keep on giving nothing, not one thing from those pieces. I mean, that was just a lot of work, just talking everyone off the fucking ledge from those two pieces. Literally, I feel like I've been hit by a truck. And then after the weekend, people are going to move completely past it. It's boring now. Nothing come out from anyone. Yeah, that could just be them not giving quotes. I don't know. This one is starred. He doesn't realize how lucky he is to have us. This is basically them saying like he's lucky to have our thing. I know, I don't think they get that. They think the truth wins. No, it doesn't. Laughing, crying emoji. And I'm like, we are dealing with a psychopath who literally called you a predator. Let's all be happy with difficult. Yeah, again, I don't think this proves anything. I have it on text message, by the way. Unbelievable. Let's be really happy with difficult. And he told him we took out misogynistic. Leslie can't possibly believe that. Let's give it a day to calm, and let's call Jamie together tomorrow and we can explain things. And socials are really, really ramping up in his favor. She must be furious. Okay. Again, this doesn't, like, prove too much to me. Do you believe Leslie? Can you spin the crisis PR thing so it's actually factual? There have been lies put out up against powerful people, just protecting myself, tag reps a lot of people, and that headline was just to smear more. This is basically saying like Blake's PR person is like not a good person or whatever. I can fully confirm we do not have bots. This is not also what we do. Bots look fake to anyone. Basically them just talking about that. I'd be interested to hear more about that contractor that they used, because they don't talk about him at all. Okay, keep making my way down. We're almost at the end, y'all. Again, if you want to go read all these texts, I'll have this linked below. Okay. The objective evidence refutes any allegation that plaintiffs engaged in a smear campaign to bury, libel, and destroy her reputation. Again, I don't think this is addressed. I don't think the quote context that they added makes these statements look any better. So unless they're being like hypothetical, I don't know, but it's just like, either way, it doesn't sound good. Stephanie Jones discloses confidential communications. Neither Lively's complaint nor the article make any mention of embattled publicist Stephanie Jones. Again, she was the former publicist of Wayfair, now insists that she was swept up in the plaintiff's so-called smear campaign. Jones sent an email to Heath detailing her, quote, recommended strategy. This was the strategy: flood the zones with positives and prepare alternate stories. They later terminated Jones for, among other things, having allegedly leaked information to the Daily Mail, despite specific instructions from them not to. She is notorious for exacting her revenge on any client brave enough to escape her grasp. I think this is interesting. I think she also filed a suit or something. I want to look more into that. I found that when I was doing some other research. Abel was forced to relinquish her electronic devices because she worked for Jones. And basically she told her that it was to delete all confidential and proprietary information. 4 months later, these text messages are now the subject of Blake's complaint. The Times publishes a false defamatory article based on Lively's administrative complaint. Such lapses have contributed to the public distrust of the Times in a landscape where partisan actors can cry, quote, fake news. This is what I was talking about before, with some justification. Again, I think this is pretty, what's the right word? Not hypocritical, but like, you could potentially be doing the same thing that they're doing, right? Like, this could be fake news. So it's interesting. Okay, this is his statement. This is this statement from the plaintiff's legal reps that was posted in the New York Times. This basically talks about, I don't think I highlighted anything else. Hold on, let me stop sharing this so you're not getting busy. But this is basically just going through all of the cause of actions, which again, if you want to read through, but it's basically just like the facts that we read already. Okay. Yeah, so that's it. Again, I'm not very persuaded by this. I think there needs to be more evidence. I'm really interested to see what happens in the coming weeks and months with this. If things do go to trial, if they don't, if they settle, like, I'm very interested to see what happens. I'm also interested to see if Justin sues Blake for defamation too. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what happens. So thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, if you're still here, leave a little star emoji below. And yeah, subscribe to be notified when I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.